So we once again have some art drama on Twitter, and this whole thing really should not have happened. So I stumbled across this with this tweet posted by Lyan, if I'm reading their name correctly, and this was posted on December 1st. Writing, thank you for leaving out all of the context. At Star Sleeps, this did not need to be public. The issue was resolved. So I found a tweet that could potentially be the first tweet that I was referencing. I did not catch it because I had a 9-hour drive stuck in like bumper to bumper traffic back down to LA. But it could potentially be this one that was tweeted by Star Sleeps, who wrote, I gotta get off this app, man. And there is a tweet that is made by Lycan, and the next screenshot showing Lycan blocking them. And this tweet had garnered 1.2k likes. Now, I'm sorry if it's a little bit convoluted, but that tweet in reference was this one that Lycan had posted about a set of adopts. Lycan wrote, retweets appreciated, some Christmas Eeveelutions. These were genuinely so much fun to make. I accept PayPal and Cash App, price clarifications are below. And as we can see here, we have a whole bunch of really cute Christmas themed Eevees with a Grinch Jolteon, Gingerbread Vaporeon, Candy Cane Espeon, etc. And the one in focus here that this whole debacle is about this Holy Umbreon. As we see here, we have Umbreon, but they are completely golden color with wings sprouting out of their head and on their back in reference to biblical angels with kind of like a little eye on their head and an eye on their leg as well. So back to the first tweet that I covered for you guys, the one with all of the screenshots. Lycan had posted a whole bunch of DMs between them and Star, where Star DMs them that adopt tweet, writing, this feels a little bit weird after us talking about some of these designs as a collab. Umbreon especially seems inspired by the Espeon I designed, sad face, and the Reindeer, sad face. Lycan writes, I'm genuinely sorry, but I thought I had alluded to thinking about revising my old doodles for a new batch. However, I'm really sorry if it didn't come off that way. Last Christmas, you had posted your finished side alone after I failed to complete the batch, so I genuinely assumed it was no longer a collab or potential collab. When I revised my Umbreon design, I genuinely didn't have your SPN in mind, only wanted to lean more into an angel or holy look. However, I understand the discomfort and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never meant to cause any discomfort and I genuinely thought I had explained myself properly before. However, I should have been more clear with my future plans. I never meant any disrespect and merely wanted to make Eeveelution adopts like I had before and use December 1st as an excuse to be festive and reuse my ancient poinsettia Eevee, mistletoe Sylveon, etc. I never meant any harm. About the reindeer, I genuinely thought my Rudolph Flareon had zero similarities to your Jolteon from last year. Last year when you posted your designs, I was a bit sad I wasn't able to complete the collab in time, and you never mentioned it until a bit ago. I genuinely assumed any idea for a collab dropped, and I didn't think my designs were similar enough to yours. I genuinely apologize for any discomfort. Just wanted to create some festive adopts following an Eeveelution batch style I've done before. Star writes, I would really appreciate if you would refund or cancel the sale of the Umbreon. And Lycan writes, I'm so sorry, but I just genuinely don't feel that's fair. May you please read what I said. I only wanted to stick to holiday themes like blessed angels, holiness, etc. There was no intention of any kind of inspiration. I only wanted to try again at Festive Adopts on my own after the collab seemed to drop. And Star writes, I did read it. Also not mad, but I really think it's too similar to the Espeon I designed. Lycan writes, I'm sorry, but I genuinely don't think this is fair. They're different colors, different Pokemon, different amounts of wings, just both are inspired from biblically accurate angels, if that's my understanding. I gave my Umbreon custom markings, colors, etc. I never meant to make them feel similar. And Star adds a side-by-side, writing, could you just have used this design instead of adding the wings and eyes that I designed with Espeon? This photo had people very confused because there's a side-by-side of a doodle of Espeon that is yellow with kind of like a halo and a bunch of markings, you know, the eye on the forehead, and a doodle on the right of Espeon with a bunch of wings. So this had struck a lot of confusion online, where some people assumed both of these drawings were stars. That's incorrect. The drawing on the left, the golden Umbreon, is a sketch that Lycan had made. So this is Lycan's artwork. The drawing on the right is Stars, the Espeon. They're not even the same Pokemon. So this is what Star is alluding to here, asking Lycan, oh, you could have just used this design, this yellow Umbreon, instead of adding wings and stuff. And again, this is how the new Umbreon looks like. It's still yellow, golden colored, still with the eye markings, but Lycan had added wings on the head, 6 wings on the head and 2 wings on the back. It's a bit of a modification of the design. So that is what Star is asking here. Like, why did you add the wings? Basically, it's making it look too similar to mine. I haven't read this full thing to you yet, but I'm just saying nobody owns the ideas of wings that the whole inspiration has been about biblically accurate angels, which is something that's been trending in the last couple of years on social media. A lot more artwork inspired by biblically accurate angels has been cropping up. And for reference, here are some examples of biblically accurate angels: a ton of wings and a ton of eyes, and basically nothing else. Or, these like intertwine kind of like rings. Neither person here owns the concept of Umbreon or Espeon that belongs to Pokemon. That is completely borrowed here. So the only other thing that they have in common is biblically accurate angels, which neither person owns either. So Lycan writes, I didn't use your Espeon as inspiration. I pulled photos from Pinterest and decided I'd rather portray a biblical angel with the golden color design and add a shawl to that mimics garb for a Christmas theme. I worked off my Umbreon design alone and other ideas I wanted to do. I pulled my old screenshot of Umbreon, Sylveon, and Eevee, as that's all I had on my laptop alongside my rough images from Pinterest and Google. I genuinely never met any similarities. Biblical angels have multiple wings, eyes, and are usually golden, so I wanted to show that. I never had your Espeon and your old sketch in memory. I'm sorry. I thought I had alluded to wanting to do my own match after the collab dropped. I apologize for not wording it better at that time. And Star writes, I really don't want this to be a fight. I like you and your art a lot, but I had designed these before even mentioning it to you. And you only made these adopts after I told you the idea I had. And I'm not even saying you can't use the idea, I'm saying I'm uncomfortable by how similar the one design is to the designs we came up with. I know you think it's different enough, but I'm letting you know I don't agree and I feel like you don't care. And Lycan writes, dude, I don't want this to be a fight, I'm sorry. I'm literally just explaining my side. I've heard your side and I care, which is why I've tried explaining mine. I generally think you're being unfair and I'm not trying to be rude. You're not wording yourself very professionally. So Star says, why is it unfair to ask you to remove one design? And Lycan says, it's not removing, it's refunding payment I need for income. My adopts and commissions are my livelihood, and this batch was groceries this week for my partner and I. That's why I'm trying to have a discussion so I can understand where you're coming from. So this message is a little bit cropped, so we can't really read it, but something, and then say that I'm ripping off the character. Lycan says they're not close, ... And Star says, I'm really sorry, but I don't agree. I'm not really sure what else to say. It's a biblically accurate angel, Eeveelution, which I have never seen before anywhere else. And Lycan says, I reach out to the client and will keep you updated on their responses. And Star says, thank you. And then there's a message that reads, I'm sorry for the spam, but I processed this and want to clarify, are you paying me the 20 USD, ... And then Star says, whichever you prefer. I just don't want to never be able to post my angel Espeon design, and I feel like I can't now without upsetting the new owner of the Umbreon. Does that make sense? Like, I feel sick to my stomach thinking that if I ever post that, someone will say I stole it from you, them, as the adopter. And Lycan says, I can promise the owner of the design wouldn't do that. They wouldn't find similarities. And Star says, I'm sorry for not apologizing about posting the first 3 when I did. And Lycan says, I've worked with them for a long while now. And Star says, can I ask who it is? And then there's a message that we don't see where it reads, while I'm waiting for their reply, I've Googled and been looking at biblically accurate Eeveelution. And in reply to that, Star writes, can I also ask for clarification here? I don't want to scare you off with my following or anything, and wouldn't have brought it up at all if you and I had not talked about Christmas Eeveelutions. I know it's not the most original idea in the world. I just feel blindsided by sharing an idea with you and brainstorming together only to see you post them without a word to me. Can you see where I'm coming from, or do you just genuinely think I'm being unreasonable? I know I have more followers, but I would hope you would see where I was coming from even if I only had 10 followers, I also feel it's interesting the emphasis on followers that Star puts here. Lycan never once mentioned that. From the screenshots that we've seen, there could be DMs we don't see, but as far as we've seen, right, Lycan was not, you have more followers, you're bullying me. That is not what they said. So I just think it's interesting the Star themselves brought up followers twice. So Lycan writes, considering you never communicated a deadline, posted the adopts without telling me, and then to my perspective didn't seem to have trouble with me revising my own adopts, I genuinely saw no problems. Christmas Eeveelutions exist. I love doing Eeveelution batches and have done them before. I remembered I had old concepts I never used and could repurpose them to help my partner with groceries tomorrow. I genuinely don't see any similarities between my updated Umbreon and your older Espeon sketch. I'm sorry, but it is genuinely scary and upsetting to me, especially since you've admittedly been rude since the beginning this convo and before this convo, not talking to me before posting your adopts and ending the collab in my eyes. At this point, I'm going to refund the client. I'll be taking the designs back, and rather than take your money, I'd rather think on the designs and change it for a future auction to avoid letting it go to waste, while not interfering with you potentially finishing the Espeon one day. And Star writes, Can you tell me what I said that was rude? I do 100% recognize that I should have talked to you before posting the adopts. I just started those before we ever talked about it and thought you were no longer interested because if I'm not mistaken, you worked on other adopts in the 4-ish weeks before I posted them. And Lycan writes, that text itself feels rude, man. The client will no longer have the design. I'll be refunding it and explaining the situation. I'll rework the old design and distance it from my original sketch for a future auction to avoid any potential overlap if you decide to finish your Espeon sketch. And then Star asks which text in response to the text feeling rude. And I'm sorry, I'm like not being backhanded at all. I just don't think I wrote anything rude and want to know if I did so I can clarify. And Lycan writes, the refund went through. I revoked the current design and I will make sure my future redesign doesn't look anything like yours. Thumbs up. And Lycan in the tweet writes, the client was refunded and I took the design back and will be updating it. I'm allowed to block you after that resolution, man. And by the way, guys, I just want to put it side by side so we can truly get a look at it. This is what the complaint is about the similarities, okay? So on the left, we have the Angel Espeon that was made by Star, and on the right, we have the Holy Umbreon that was made by Lycan, and the similarities are non-existent in my opinion. Look, neither of these people own the concept of EVs and Eeveelutions that belongs to Pokemon, so this is already treading onto Pokemon IP. That's a whole separate conversation, right? There's a big subculture in making these sort of like fan renditions of characters and Pokemon. So that's not really a big deal. And then the idea of biblically accurate angels has been trending for the last year or two now, so that also is not owned by anybody. If anything, it's owned by the Bible, I guess, for their description of biblically accurate angels. And there's really no similarities at all. The wings look extremely different, even in the profile of the wings. The Espeon has 2 wings coming out of its head, whereas the Umbreon has 6 and 2 wings on the back. The Espeon has these like wings on the front paws, and that's not present on the Umbreon. I'm like losing my brain switching between Umbreon, Espeon, Umbreon, Espeon. They look extremely different. I think overall, the final thing that I think is kind of odd is like Star's insistence on the whole Christmas Eevees and that, oh, because we discussed Christmas Eevees, I now feel weird that you made Christmas Eeveelutions. Like, the idea of Christmasifying a set of characters is not owned by anyone. And I do understand that in art copying cases, right? Like, ideas are also something that can be copied as well, but it depends on the specificity of it. And Christmas Eevees and Christmas Eeveelutions are extremely broad. It's like the same thing as like in VTubers when they like accuse each other of copying each other's designs, except they're like pink-haired cat girl VTubers with long hair. They're like a dime a dozen. There's like so many of them. They're not all copying each other. It's just a very, very common and popular trope so that a lot of people emulate it and will produce it in their artwork. That's point blank simple. Like, no one owns the concept of a fox girl because there's so many of them. Just like you don't own the concept of Christmas Eevees because it's just too broad. It's too general. And here's what some people had to say in the comments. So Sunny Not Sunny says, they're super mega entitled for thinking they own the concept of biblically accurate angels. The design don't look similar at all. So sorry they had to trash on you like that. It never should have been made public. And Lycan writes, I don't even care about the designs anymore and will no longer even be revamping the refunded one. This never needed to be public, especially with them genuinely lying to those that ask for context. I genuinely thought blocking and moving forward was the right thing. I'm sorry if not. And Sonny says, you definitely did the right thing by blocking and moving on. The way they intentionally misconstrued the situation confirms that you made the right choice. It's better to avoid people who do that. This is a grown 26-year-old with a stick up their butt over a common design theme. And Izzy says, this is crazy. I've probably made like 3 to 4 Angel Core Eeveelution adopts in the last 6 months alone. It's not like a rare concept to base an adopt on. So we have Vix Swiss Arts writing. Normally I wouldn't say this out loud because I know it hurts to hear, but I'm sorry, this is a Jolteon with spots and a harness. It's cute, but could it be copied by accident? This is something all character designers should understand when making simple adopts. So here, again, we have Star Sleep's artwork. This is the Jolteon they were referencing in the DMs, saying, oh, the Reindeer Jolteon looks similar. You know, it's a Jolteon kind of reindeerified with a red harness with bells and a bunch of white spots. And then Vix adds, I looked again and no, I was too nice. I apologize for grabbing your adopt real quick, but if they look at these and think they're similar, they need their eyes fixed. There's a literal trend of turning fursonas into reindeer and making reindeer adopts. They don't own that shit. And here we have the adopt that was made by Lycan of their Rudolph Flareon, where it is a Rudolphified Flareon, but it looks legitimately nothing like the Jolteon, like at all. it still has a red harness and it still has the spots, but it's interpreted in such a different way that it looks extremely different. Not only one, it's not even the same Pokemon again, right? One is a Jolteon, this one's a Flareon, but also this one has reindeer horns. The ears look much different. The coloring is completely different. Flareon's supposed to be like reddish, right? But they made them completely brown with this very extensive fluff. If you look side by side, it's very different. Again, referencing Star's art, you don't own the concept of slapping a red harness onto a Jolteon. And again, you don't own the Jolteon concept in general because that's owned by Pokemon. Again, a different discourse, but it's too general. Like, you cannot own that. This is again the same thing if you're designing a character and you slap devil horns onto it. You don't own a white-haired character with devil horns because it's just simply too general of a concept. Now again, the discourse changes if we get into much more specific aspects of the design, but that's not an issue here. Mary Mew writes, designs with the same theme will tend to have similarities, but your designs were both quite unique and different. This honestly didn't have to be turned into such a big deal. I'm sorry this happened. And Momochuki writes, you were so respectful throughout the entire conversation. I would have crashed out so quick. And God of Love Amore writes, I'm sorry this happened. It was resolved, so there's no reason to bring it publicly, especially considering the difference in followings. I hope you're not upset by this, and I hope it doesn't hinder your work too. Your art is wonderful, and I hope you're taking care of yourself. And I'm only pulling this up because this was something that Star themselves mentioned in the DMs, but Lycan has 5,300 followers. And Star has almost 30K. They're almost 6 times larger than Lycan. And I think, okay, there's always a discourse, right, of like bigger creators calling out small creators. There are many, many times where small creators will rob big creators of their artwork and their stuff, and big creators get attacked if they ever were to call out the smaller creator. Where people are like, oh my god, you're bullying the small creator, except the small creator, their last 10 artworks were like theft, straight ripoffs from the big creator. And I've covered scenarios like that on my YouTube channel already, but this is not such a case. This is a case where we have a bigger creator who is apparently, according to the DMs, quite aware they're a bigger creator, notably punching down on a smaller creator for calling them out for allegedly copying a design when it's in my opinion not copied at all, because the concept is way too general for any of them to own, and it just looks so different in the interpretation. And we have this post from Mocat writing, they're also DMing people, I assume, who've commented on posts about this, trying to argue their side. And here's a DM between Star, where Star sends a screenshot of DMs with Lycan, and Star says, just for the record, it's fine if you don't care. I never asked them to take the financial hit. I just didn't want the Angel Eevee to belong to somebody else because I didn't want anyone upset that I was stealing their character if I ever drew the version I designed. And this one's honestly really interesting because it sounds like they're like fighting a battle that doesn't exist, right? Like, I get the whole like, oh, I'm like worried that people are gonna accuse me of copying you when I didn't do that. It's so different, the pieces, that nobody would accuse you, first off. But secondly, like, it doesn't work that way. This analogy is a little bit out of left field, but like in the case of you can argue the self-defense if you actually had to end somebody's life in your self-defense because you're being attacked or your life was threatened in any way. But you can't like preemptively self-defend and like end somebody's life because you have some inkling that potentially 2 years down the line they might come for you. Like, it doesn't work like that in the eyes of the law. And in this case too, like, you're worried about something that hasn't even happened yet and you're taking preemptive steps to prepare yourself for it, but you're going, it's so wrong. And the person writes, why are you stalking Lycan's post for people who agree with her? And the person responds, and I believe this is Mocat, and they did misgender Lycan here, so I'll correct it, but Mocat writes, why are you stalking Lycan's post for people who agree with him so you can DM people to argue your side? That's weird as F, man. You got what you wanted, let it go. And Rose Tsunami writes, quote, I never asked them to take a financial hit. I just didn't want the Angel Eevee to belong to anyone else, end quote. The Angel Eevee that was an adopt and already sold, meaning there is literally no solution to their problem without them taking a financial hit. And Lycan made a final tweet writing, this is genuinely all I'll say, by the way. This doesn't have to be drama because there wasn't any. They think I used their design. I don't believe I did. The adopt was refunded and won't be used nonetheless. I just want to block and move on. And I'm curious as to your thoughts about this scenario. I definitely do not think that Star's design was used by Lycan whatsoever. Their stuff looks extremely unique and very pretty as well, which I'll have their adopts linked down below if you're interested in checking it out, although I believe they might all be sold by now. But I don't think any theft and stuff happened in those adopts. They look very uniquely separate from the pieces that Star was accusing them of copying. So what's your thoughts about this whole scenario? Again, don't send hate to anybody. And if you like this video, I appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. I do stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. So I hope to catch you guys there or in another one of my videos.